So a lot of veterans are living with disabilities worth thousands of dollars in VA benefits, and they don't even realize that they're leaving that money on the table. Not because they don't qualify, but because they never claimed the correct conditions to begin with. Eric TheBeardedVet here, and if you're a veteran with a VA disability rating, there's a real chance something important may have been missed in your claim. And this happens more often than most veterans realize. The reality is that thousands of veterans are living with symptoms every single day that affect their quality of life. But those conditions were never included in their initial claims, right? Sometimes they didn't even realize that the conditions could even be connected to service. Other times they didn't realize it could be connected to something they're already rated for. And that's where many veterans unknowingly leave benefits on the table. So before we get into it, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video so more veterans can learn what they may be missing. And if you want help figuring out what your rating should actually look like, click the link below, schedule a consultation with one of our Pathfinders here at United Veterans Assistance. So before we jump into the list, here's a quick question. If you're currently deal with things like back pain, tinnitus, migraines, sleep problems, or digestive issues, have you ever wondered whether all of the conditions connected to those were actually included in your VA claim? Because in many cases, they aren't. Also, I'm curious, if you're a veteran watching this, comment below. Let me know what your current VA rating is, if you think you're currently rated correctly, or if you think there's still work to be done, right? We'll be happy to talk to you. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Just reach out. So today we're going to walk through 5 disabilities that most veterans commonly forget to claim and why they miss them, right? So make sure you stick around for number 5, because that's where veterans really leave the most money on the table. So number 1, migraines. A lot of veterans are calling migraines just headaches, when those migraines may actually be and qualify for a significant VA disability rating. So migraines aren't just headaches, right? We're talking about the pounding pain, the light sensitivity, the sound sensitivity, the nausea, the episodes that can force someone to lay down in a dark room for hours. For some veterans, it becomes impossible to work. It immobilizes you. You can't drive. You can't function normally during an episode. Veterans are used to pushing through the pain, right? We're taught all the time, push through, the mission comes first. And it just becomes your new norm, right? A veteran may just say, yeah, I get these pounding headaches a few times a week, but, never stops to ask, well, how often is this happening, right? How severe is it? How much is this actually disrupting my life? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. And one of the important things to remember when it comes to migraines, if you haven't claimed, and this is something that you're just like, is resonating with you, take a moment and start documenting these things, right? That's when it comes into play for migraines, is documenting when you have a migraine, how intense it is, how long it's lasting for. Make sure you keep a journal, because when the time comes for you to go and file this claim, that journal becomes medical evidence that the VA has to use when deciding on your claim. So migraines are often connected to other issues: PTSD, poor sleep, tinnitus, neck injuries, medication side effects. You hear things like, every time my stress spikes, I get a migraine. My tinnitus is so loud, by the end of the day, I end up with a splitting headache, right? I have to go lay down in a dark room until it passes. If that sounds like you, it's not something to brush off. And keep something in mind as we go through this list. Migraines like this don't just affect your head, right? They affect your sleep, your mood, your patience, and your daily life. That becomes very important, especially when we get to the last condition in this list, because this is where a lot of veterans unknowingly leave the biggest amount of compensation on the table. So number 2, sleep apnea and sleep disorders. A lot of veterans don't lose sleep apnea claims because they don't have sleep apnea. They lose them because the claim wasn't built correctly. So some veterans know they have sleep apnea. Others know they sleep terribly but have never been tested. And some veterans even have a CPAP machine, but their claim still got denied. If this is relatable to you, you're not alone. And here's the reason why. Most veterans assume that because the VA issued you a CPAP, because the VA put you on a certain medication, they're automatically going to say, oh, yeah, this is right. Let's just go ahead and approve this claim. Well, that's not what they're here for. The VA, where you go and see your PCP, your primary care, get all these things done, they don't work with the disability side of things, right? It's not the same. So they're not going to work with each other, and it's not their job to report it and say, oh yeah, he should be rated. It's your job, right, to build that case and supply that evidence, right? And if this is relatable, like I said, veterans are exhausting so much time, on their own and filing this incorrectly, right? And you may hear veterans just say, well, I'm just getting older, right? I don't sleep well because of the stress. I wake up tired, and I just deal with it, right? Does this sound familiar? But poor sleep affects everything, right? It affects your mood, it affects your memory, it affects your focus, your blood pressure, your energy, your ability to work. And in many cases, sleep apnea does not exist by itself. For some veterans, it may also be connected to their PTSD. For others, it may be connected to respiratory issues like sinus conditions, sinusitis, rhinitis, or medical changes. A very common situation looks like this. A veteran develops PTSD. Sleep becomes disrupted. Medication changes lead to weight gain. Sleep quality gets worse. Eventually, they're diagnosed with sleep apnea, but no one ever explained how these pieces might connect. And if that situation sounds like your experience, strategy in the claim becomes extremely important. And when veterans are constantly exhausted, not sleeping well, dealing with these physical conditions at the same time, it often starts affecting other areas of their life. That connection becomes really important for the last issue that we're going to be talking about, which is one of the most commonly missed and most valuable claims that veterans overlook. Again, I'm going to repeat that. It's the most commonly missed and most valuable claim that veterans overlook. So now number 3, GERD and digestive issues. If you're keeping antacids everywhere you go, there's a good chance your digestive issues are more than just an inconvenience. Veterans often deal with the symptoms like acid reflux, heartburn, chest discomfort, regurgitation, trouble swallowing, nausea after meals, and they just assume it's just their diet, right? It's stress. I'm just getting older. But digestive problems often connect to a bigger health picture. Maybe medications are affecting the stomach. Maybe stress and anxiety are affecting that digestion. Maybe chronic pain, poor sleep are playing a role. The other thing to remember is there's a lot to take into consideration. Not only that, but alcohol. If you were ever, diagnosed with alcoholism, if you had, anything documented where you got in trouble. So for an example, when I was in tech school, I got in trouble for underage drinking, right? We went out, got drunk. I had to end up going to the hospital. It's documented. When I filed my claim for my GERD and IBS, the CMP examiner looked at it and said, hey, this is documented. You had all these issues with alcohol poisoning, all these other things. Alcohol is a direct cause of GERD. It aggravates it. And because of that, that was the deciding factor on being able to show and link that back to my time in service to getting that rating, and it really does make a big difference, right? So again, if this sounds like you, don't hesitate, reach out. Our Pathfinders will be more than happy to talk to you and see if you have a good case for a sleep disorder. So a lot of veterans may also say things like, I can't eat spicy food anymore, or I wake up in the middle of the night with a burning sensation in my chest, or I sleep propped up because the reflux just gets so bad, right? Many veterans just simply adapt to it, right? They keep antacids in their truck, in their desk, in their pockets, in their nightstand, and it just becomes a daily routine, right? And this is just, again, becomes the new norm that they live with. So there's a good chance that this is something worth looking into. When digestive problems start affecting your sleep, your comfort, your daily routine, they rarely stay isolated. And this is exactly the kind of situation that leads into the last disability on this list, which again, many veterans experience, but never even realize that it's something that can be connected to their claim. Number 4, radiculopathy. You might already be rated for your back, but not everything your back is actually causing. Many veterans know that they have back pain. They may even already have a rating for it, but they just assume that everything else is simply a part of that same condition. And this is where a lot is missed in ratings, because that pain not always stops at the spine. Symptoms like numbness, tingling, a burning pain, weakness, shooting pain down the arms or the legs can all be signs of nerve involvement. Veterans rarely describe it in medical terms. They may say things like, my legs go numb when I stand too long, or I get lightning pain down my arms, my foot starts tingling, my back pain shoots down to my legs. Does that sound familiar? Many veterans also assume that these symptoms are automatically included in that back rating, but often they're not. And the reason for it is nerve conditions like radiculopathy all carry their own rating. And if you've been dealing with those symptoms, there's a good chance that they deserve their own attention in a claim. And when veterans deal with constant nerve pain like this for years, something else often starts to happen. Again, their sleep gets worse, right? Their patient gets shorter, their mood changes, their quality of life drops and is impacted, which brings us to the last condition on this list, and the one that often makes the biggest difference in the veteran's overall rating. So if you haven't figured it out yet, number 5, it's a mental health. And mental health secondary to your other disabilities. So this is one of the most expensive mistakes that veterans make, is ignoring the mental health impact of the physical disabilities. When veterans think about mental health claims, they usually just think about PTSD. But mental health conditions can also develop secondary to other service-connected disabilities. In other words, when the physical condition affects your life every single day, it can eventually start affecting your mental health as well. Living with chronic pain changes people. Constant pain, poor sleep, physical limitations, frustration, loss of independence. Over time, those things can affect mood, motivation, your overall mental health. This is something we see across many different service-connected disabilities: back pain, neck injuries, migraines, sleep apnea, digestive issues, tinnitus. When those conditions affect your life long enough, they can lead to depression, anxiety, irritability, and other mental health challenges. Veterans often describe it like this: I'm more irritable now than I used to be. I don't enjoy things anymore. I'm exhausted and in pain every day. I snap at people, even my loved ones, right? My wife, my kids, it's easy for me to just snap at them because they're right here, right? If that sounds like something you've experienced, a veteran who cannot work like they used to, cannot play with their kids like they used to, cannot sleep through the night, you may absolutely have experienced a mental health challenge. And these are secondary to physical conditions. And that matters in the VA claim, because the VA claim is not just about what hurts. It's about how what hurts has changed your life and is impacting you today. And in many cases, mental health conditions are one of the most overlooked secondary disabilities veterans miss. If you've heard yourself in any of these examples, that's the point. A lot of veterans are living with more than they realize, and many are missing conditions that could significantly impact their overall rating. If you want help reviewing your current rating, identifying what may be missing, and understanding your next steps, click the link below. Schedule a consultation with one of our Pathfinders here at United Veterans Assistance. You served, you sacrificed. Make sure your rating reflects the full picture. This is Eric TheBeardedVet. I'll see you next time.